How can an Archetype have a draw 7 spell card and still be trash? This is a direct quote from Ursarctic players on almost every Reddit forum. Ursarctic was Konami's attempt to bring the Dark Synchro Summoning method seen on Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds to life. Like My Decisions, Dark Synchro Summoning does everything completely backwards by using the total difference between a tuner and a non-tuner instead of adding the total sum of them like the standard Synchro Summoning method. While this idea is entertaining, we all have one question to ask. Will it be any good? You've probably seen the name of this video already, so no more needs to be said. Let's explain why Ursarctics joined the Failed Card Hall of Fame. Ursarctics debuted in 2021 in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG set Ancient Guardians. The main deck monsters in the archetype all bounced around being level 7 and level 8 monsters. The main deck contained 6 water monsters, all of which had quick effects that allowed you to tribute one other level 7 or higher monster in your hand to special summon them from your hand, and lock you out of special summoning monsters unless they have a level. The non-tuner Ursarctic monsters are level 7 beasts, while the tuners were level 8 beast warriors. The level 7 Ursarctics were Ursarctic McPolar, McBelis, and McTanis. All of the names translates to Archetype doomed to fail, or something about bears. Choose your favorite way to remember them. When Ursarctic McPolar is special summoned, you can add an Ursarctic card from your deck to your hand. When McBelis is special summoned, you can special summon an Ursarctic monster from your hand. Finally, when McTanis is special summoned, you can target an Ursarctic card in your graveyard and special summon it. The level 8s were Megapolar, Megabelis, and Megatanis. Unlike their micro versions, the level 8s had effects to interact with your opponent and disrupt their plays if you controlled another Ursarctic monster. Megapolar lets you target a spell or trap your opponent controls and destroy it. Megabelis enables you to target one card in your opponent's graveyard and banish it. And Megatanis allows you to target an opponent's face-up monster and change it to face-down defense position. For their synchros, they were given 3, with the central star being Ursarctic Polari, a level 1 synchro requiring you to send 2 monsters from your field with a 1 level difference between them to the graveyard. When Polari is special summoned, you can add an Ursarctic Big Dipper from your deck to your hand. You can tribute a level 7 or higher Ursarctic monster to either add an Ursarctic card from your graveyard to your hand or special summon it. Following Polari is Ursarctic Septatreon, their level 7 synchro monster that could also only be summoned by the Dark Synchro. When it's face up on the field, it negates face-up monster effects on the field who were special summoned from the extra deck if they had no level. Also, once per turn, you can add an Ursarctic card from your deck to your hand if your opponent special summons a monster. Finally, Ursarctic Grand Chariot was a level 8 synchro. It needed to be special summoned just like the other 2 Ursarctic synchros. When it's summoned, you can target up to 2 cards on the field and destroy them. Once per turn, when a card or effect is activated that targets an Ursarctic card you control, you can tribute 1 monster from your hand or field to negate it. Ursarctic had a straightforward game plan. Summon your level 7 and level 8 Ursarctics and make Polari, activate Polari's effect to get Big Dipper, and then special summon another Ursarctic tuner to synchro summon Septatreon and interrupt your opponent by using the quick effects of the Ursarctic tuners to summon themselves and activate their trigger effects. The 4 spell/trap cards given to the archetype had the heart and soul of the deck. For Ursarctic Big Dipper, once per turn, if your Ursarctic monster would tribute a monster activates effects, you can banish a level 7 or higher Ursarctic monster from your graveyard instead. And each time a monster is special summoned, you can place a counter on this card. When your opponent special summons a monster while you control an Ursarctic synchro monster, you can remove all counters from Big Dipper to target one of your opponent's monsters and take control of it. Ursarctic Slider was a quick play spell that targets one Ursarctic monster that's banished or in the graveyard and special summons it, but it can't attack, and it's destroyed near the end phase. You can also only special summon monsters with levels for the rest of the turn. Ursarctic Departure was their search spell. By discarding 1, add 2 Ursarctic monsters from your deck to your hand. If you attribute a monster to activate an Ursarctic monster's effect, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. Finally, their trap card Ursarctic Quint Charge was a continuous trap that lets you pay 700 life points once per turn to activate one of its effects. You could either add an Ursarctic monster from your graveyard to your hand, or tribute 2 Ursarctic monsters, and if you do, special summon from your extra deck 1 Ursarctic monster with a level equal to the difference in levels between those monsters, ignoring its summoning conditions. Also, when an opponent's attack destroys your Ursarctic synchro monster, you can activate this card's effect to have your opponent shuffle cards into their deck, so the total number of cards in the field, hand, and graveyard is 7. The support was decent for its first round. It had ways to make its boss monster, searches in McPolar and Departure, and combo starters in McTanis and McBelis. Septatreon was a great floodgate card that stopped the impact of Link and Xyz that your opponent would summon or play. The level 8s interact with your opponent's turn and can interrupt their plays by popping spells and traps, flipping cards face down, or banishing key parts of your opponent's combos from the graveyard. Their field spell was also pretty good. The ability to use monsters from your opponent's graveyard as cost for your Ursarctics helped save resources and could double as a change of heart on your opponent's turn to keep. All this sounds good on paper, but if it were good, it wouldn't be in this video now, would it? Ursarctic's monsters had simple requirements to summon, but that didn't negate the fact that most of your summons were a -1. You lost too many resources just to summon one monster. Just summoning 2 monsters from your hand on your first turn meant you only had 1 card left in your hand to play after using those 2 monsters. Not to mention that the conditions to be special summoned were cost effects, making going second dangerous, as a negated teddy bear meant your turn was staring at the table. Also, the fact that most of the cards, from monsters to searchers, locked you into monsters with levels, ultimately making Lynx and Xyz 2 of the best extra deck monster types and accessible for you. So you were stuck making Polari if you were going to do a pure Ursarctic build, making the deck linear as a well-timed Ash Blossom to your Polari took away access to your Big Dipper, which is your best, if not most critical piece of your combo to get to Septatreon and help with the suffering of needing extra level 7 or higher monsters in your hand for Ursarctic monsters' cost effects. To make the deck even more fragile, the deck had no protection. Grand Chariot was the only card that granted protection, but that's if your Ursarctics were being targeted. Nothing can stop you from getting Lightning Storm, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno flipping your cards, or getting your hard work Zeused into oblivion. Sure, your Ursarctic tuners could be used as interruption to hinder your opponent, but none of them really stop your opponent's effects from going off. Booking a card face down with Megatannis may stop an extra deck play or cause your opponent to use more resources, but it doesn't negate or remove the problem from the field. Many players tried to cover up Ursarctic's flaws with techs that complemented the struggling archetype. One of the most popular engines used with them was the Deep Sea Diva archetype, as Deep Sea Diva fetched a level 3 lower Sea Serpent monster from your deck, allowing you to make Link monsters without being locked out by your Ursarctic monsters. So you play Diva and a card like Deep Sea Ministrel to make Crystron Halqifibrax, who was one of, if not the most powerful Link monster back in 2021. And if you've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh since 2020, you know precisely where this led into. Special summon your Despot 001, link into Auroradon, bring back 001, tribute tokens for Cult Wing, get back 001, and choose the Synchro of your choice in the most powerful, boring, and overplayed combo in Yu-Gi-Oh history. Regardless, splashing in the Deep Sea Diva helped Ursarctics have a turn 1 play that didn't punish them as heavily and still let them with plays and resources they could follow up with without worrying about being locked out of using links. Sure, your opponent could use a hand trap and negate your Diva, but in that case, you could just continue playing your Ursarctics without the fear of being hand trapped. This could be said for the use of Lefty Driver and Righty Driver in the deck, which could be used for Halqifibrax or Polari. Simply playing Righty Driver activating its effect to get Lefty Driver, and not activating Lefty Driver's effect to increase its level to Dark Synchro Summon into Polari. Hopier Squadron also saw some play within the land of Polar Bears. Its ability to special summon itself and use a monster on your side of the field to make a Synchro Summon on your opponent's turn makes it one of the most unique techs in Yu-Gi-Oh! Even though the deck can make Dark Synchros, that doesn't mean it's relegated just to make them. You can still make regular Synchro monsters too. And with high level monsters in Ursarctics, you can make the level 9 or level 10s on your opponent's turn. The deck was far from complete, but with the access to Halqifibrax and multiple ways to make Polari, players hoped that Ursarctics would become a viable option to pick up. The cards in Burst of Destiny didn't give much in the hope department. In Burst of Destiny, the archetype received the most random and head-scratching support. Ursarctic Drytron was a normal spell that lets you special summon 1 ultimate flagship Ursatron from your extra deck by banishing an Ursarctic Big Dipper and 1 Drytron Fafnir from your hand and/or field. If you control Polari or a Drytron Thuban, you can also send a Dipper or Fafnir from your deck instead. It also had the same secondary clause as Departure, allowing you to banish this card from your graveyard so you don't have to attribute a monster from your hand for an Ursarctic's monster's effect. Their new monster was the ultimate flagship Ursatron. This level 7 fusion monster at 2000 attack and 700 defense. It's always treated as an Ursarctic and a Drytron monster. Once per turn, if another effect monster is summoned to your side of the field, you can add an Ursarctic or Drytron monster from your deck to your hand, and once per turn, you can target 1 banished Ursarctic or Drytron monster and add it to your hand. In one word, why? None of these archetypes had any correlation except that they were water attributes. Drytron was completely in the realm of ritual summoning, and Ursarctics only cared about synchro summoning. Ursarctic Drytron required you to play a brick that gives no benefits in Fafnir and cost you the Big Dipper, which is essential in the Ursarctic combos. The payoff wasn't worth it either. The fact that you had to summon another effect monster to get its Searcher effect made this card lackluster. The Ursarctic Gang would have to wait 6 months late for their next support in the TCG set, Battle of Chaos. What do you give an archetype that needs everything? You give it 1 card that solves nothing. Just 1 card, Ursarctic Radiation, which was their continuous spell that, on activation, has 7 counters placed on it. When an Ursarctic monster is special summoned from the hand or extra deck, you remove a counter to draw a card. Once per turn during your end phase, you can target an Ursarctic monster in your graveyard and shuffle it back into the deck. Radiation sounds good on paper, or in this case, cardboard. Although its effect that lets you draw isn't once per turn, allowing you to draw up to 7 cards and shuffle your materials back into your deck. The Ursarctic line didn't have any means to be able to special summon consecutively every turn due to the demanding cost to be summoned. Also, you can throw away the idea of playing multiple copies of Radiation, as you can only control one Ursarctic Radiation. So, even if all your counters are used up, you'll be stuck with this card until it's removed from the field. It seemed that for every card you played in Ursarctics, there was a heavy drawback for every single card. Playing a monster locked you into only summoning level monsters. Your Floodgate boss monsters stopped you from playing Links and Xyzs. And now you had a situational draw power that you could only control one of. However, with access to Halqifibrax and Auroradon, the deck still had plays to help it function. Anyways, Halqifibrax and Auroradon were banned in late 2022 in the TCG, and the deck couldn't function without the world's degenerate combo available. Linear play, lack of resources to upkeep gameplay, and weakness to multiple hand traps made it unplayable. Not to mention, their boards were still breakable because the Archetypes still didn't get support to protect their monsters from destruction removal outside of Grand Chariot. It was all downhill for the deck, and the copium supply ran out to keep people interested in Ursarctics. So, with its destiny bound for Duel Links and Master Duel, players decided to mark Ursarctics as a fun deck to build for cheap. However, Duelist Nexus would finally make Ursarctics the one thing they could never be, and that was playable. In the TCG set Duelist Nexus, Ursarctics received one main deck and one synchro monster. Ultimate Bright Knight Ursatron Alpha, aka, this name is really long, was a level 7 machine-type water monster that was treated as an Ursarctic and a Drytron monster that could only be special summoned by card effect. If you control an Ursarctic or Drytron monster, you could special summon this monster from your hand. Then search for an Ursarctic or Drytron spell trap from your deck to your hand. Is that good support in a failed cards and mechanics video? This card was the extender that Ursarctics needed. It was searchable due to counting as an Ursarctic, was an extender with no cost, and search your spells and traps. You can now have two monsters in the field that didn't use so many resources and fetch the combo pieces you needed without depending on what you draw. It's safe to say this card was a welcome addition to the deck that was desperately needed to make the deck consistent and playable. The final piece added so far to Ursarctics was another good card. Ursarctic Polari Star was the new level 1 synchro monster that allowed you to tribute it and a level 8 Ursarctic monster to special summon a level 7 Ursarctic synchro monster from your extra deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. If you do, it also gains an effect that stops your opponent from activating the effects of monsters with levels that are special summoned from your extra deck. So not only will Septentrion negate your opponent's monsters without levels, but it will also shut down the monsters with levels, making their extra deck completely useless. It's unbelievable how sometimes in Yu-Gi-Oh! The worst decks have some of the most insane and powerful effects. Venoms have a monster that can win the duel with 3 attacks. Heroics were god-awful but had an Xyz that stopped your opponent from playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Now Ursarctics get to join the group of inconsistent decks with powerful monster effects. Did this support make the deck good? It's still a heavy no, but it finally hit a playable level. Ursatron Alpha was a powerful extender and searcher for the deck, and Polari made your Septentrion the ultimate floodgate, until your opponent uses Lightning Storm, Dark Ruler No More, or Forbidden Droplets to field your Kingdom Come. Don't let that dishearten you, your deck is now playable, and that's probably the happiest way we can wrap up Ursarctics. The new support did give a ray of hope to the Build-A-Bear deck. It won't be meta-defining due to its breakable boards and scarce protection, and the playstyle still makes you neg 1 if you don't have critical pieces like Radiation to help you break even. However, the deck is still great for casual play. Still you can use some wins in Master Duel and all around fun, being that this is the only deck using the Dark Synchro mechanic. Maybe one day the stars will align and the galactic Build-A-Bear will rise together to take over the Yu-Gi-Oh! Format. That's not our job to predict though. We here at TheDuelLogs proudly introduce Ursarctics to the Hall of Failed Cards and Mechanics. Update. Ursarctics actually managed to top an event in the OCG shortly after this script was written. Here's the deck list on screen. It seems like they were able to use the Deep Sea Diva engine with Atlanteans to fill out what the deck needed to finally make plays.